Hey everybody, welcome to History 1301 Corona Edition. I'm safe inside my bunker. I hope you are safe wherever you are too. We're going to continue going in the American Revolution. The Market Revolution, which is kind of our transition period. It's similar in time period to the era of good feelings, which is hopefully the PowerPoint that you just got through watching. So some of this is going to overlap. Well, we're going to look at the 19th century and changes in the 19th century, both social changes, economic changes, and those two kind of go hand in hand. And then in the third video, I believe, we will look at the political ramifications, the political changes in the 19th century that will get us into the era of Jackson. And Jackson is a ton of fun. So let's dive in. All right, so a lot of stuff has been going on in the United States since the American Revolution, and one of those things that happens is that public opinion, especially in the North, starts to turn away from slavery. Slavery is going to have to defend itself as an institution. I mean, if you fight a revolution based on life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, liberty, if you say that all men are created equal, right? You have to suddenly explain why that does not include African Americans, right? Why does that not include slaves? Now they explain it. It's a terrible explanation, but they've got reasons. But a lot of people stopped buying those reasons, especially in the North. So North, we saw something called gradual emancipation, where slavery starts to slowly go away in the North. However, and actually we saw that in the South too. There's kind of this brief moment of history where you could at least talk about getting rid of slavery. People like George Washington got rid of all of his slaves upon his death. Thomas Jefferson freed a lot of slaves. He couldn't free all of them. He was in too much debt. But he at least freed the ones that, were his own kids. So there's this talk. There's a lot of at least healthy conversation about ending slavery. That is, until this happens. Until Eli Whitney invents the cotton gin in 1793. Eli Whitney is a Yale graduate. He's working as a private tutor in Georgia, and he discovers this device. And I think my little picture is in the way, so I might see if I can remove the picture. There you go. You can see the cotton gin. So the idea is the cotton will go into this device, and you turn the handle and it will press the cotton. The seeds will fall to the bottom, and it will make it a lot easier for people to produce cotton. And it works. The cotton gin is going to transform the American South into what we call the Cotton Kingdom from 1820 up until the Civil War. Has a massive impact on the South, and it has a massive impact on slavery. But first, the impact on the South. In 1793, which is the year it was invented, the United States produced 5 million pounds of cotton. That sounds like a lot. But by 1820, by the time this cotton gin had grown everywhere, the United States produced 170 pounds of cotton. That's a massive difference, and some of the wealthiest people in all of America lived in the South and were cotton-producing individuals. Now, this has a huge impact on slavery. Instead of having a healthy conversation about could we possibly get rid of slavery, the entire Southern identity became centered on slavery. It was no longer a question of could we get rid of it, it was could we live without it. Slavery was the line of demarcation between a wealthy Southerner and a poor Southerner. Now the problems, though, for the Southerners is that the Constitution had forbid new imports of slaves coming in from Africa. The Constitution gave it 20 years. You can have 20 more years of the slave trade coming in from Africa. So that's going to lead to a new form of slavery. They're going to start bringing in slaves. This started in 1808 when Congress prohibited the Atlantic slave trade. So they started bringing in slaves from Maryland and Virginia and South Carolina and forced them to march in coffles, just like they had done leaving Africa. And in this second Middle Passage, they're moving them to places like Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. The second Middle Passage destroyed familial ties of slaves, broke up long-standing communities, added also a new layer of terror to the institution of slavery. One of my favorite historians about slavery is a guy named Walter Johnson, and he wrote a book called Soul by Soul, and he argues that it's this slave auction, this buying and selling slaves, the fact that you could be sold at any moment for any reason, adds a new layer of terror for antebellum slavery. Now there's other impacts more nationwide. You start to see a transportation revolution take place. In 1806, the United States built its first national road going from Cumberland, Maryland to Vandalia, Illinois. It will connect the east to the northwest. Robert Fulton will invent his steamboat, add a steam engine to a boat, and he will call it the Clermont, and it will make its maiden voyage from the Hudson River to New York City and Albany. It's going to inspire a canal process, and it will cut the time it takes to ship something almost in half. In 1811, Robert Fulton's steamboat is the first boat ever to sail up and down the Mississippi River. By 1931, 20 years later, there are 200 steamboats going up and down the Mississippi River. Like I said, this spawned canal building. DeWitt Clinton, the governor of New York, convinces the New York legislature to build a 363-mile canal that will connect Albany to Buffalo, New York, so that the Hudson River connects New York City to the Great Lakes. Also, and this is kind of a tough transition, this is not transportation, but another impact of the market revolution is we are seeing a transition away from household economy to a wage labor system. So before this, you had a family, everyone worked on the family farm. It was good for you to have a lot of kids. That's a lot of help on the family farm. And people bartered. People said, I'll loan you some of my time if you'll come and work on my farm for a little while. We traded time, we traded goods, we traded assets. But then people started going to work and started getting jobs that paid wages. And that's why we call this section the market revolution, because we're no longer a barter economy. We are now coming into a system that looks more like the modern system today. So that's how it impacts the South and the Midwest. Also, I'm going to put this down. Look how it impacts the North. In the North, it's about the same time as the cotton gin. A British immigrant named Samuel Slater, who essentially steals the plans for a textile mill. It was illegal for anyone to write down or copy the plans of a textile mill in England. It was invented in England. So Samuel Slater memorized it and then brought that memory to the United States and started building textiles in the United States. And they were massively successful. Kind of the hallmark of textile mills is a town in Massachusetts called Lowell, Massachusetts. It first started building textile factories in 1824, but by 1850 the population had exploded to 33,000 people, making it the second largest city in all of New England. And these textile workers, many of them were young women. It housed 10,000 workers. Here's a picture of what Lowell, Massachusetts looked like at its height. I always think that this looks like a college dorm. to me. So you've got like these buildings over here that look like college dorms, and then you've got all these steeples that pop up are churches that are built around Lowell, Massachusetts. This is still New England after all, right? We still love our church buildings. Oops, I'm coloring it. And then you have up here the factories that you would leave your college dorm and you would come over here and you would work in the factories. And many of the women, there's tens of thousands of workers working in there. They're feeding 320,000 spindles. And these mills are producing 50,000 miles of cloth every year. The women that are using these factories or working at these factories were known as mill girls. Here's a picture of them kind of hard at work at these factories. Got it. Imagining listening to that all day long. My goodness. So on the one hand, these mill girls have the opportunity to earn their own money. They have their opportunity to become kind of independent of a man, which is a good thing. But on the other hand, they're kind of stuck, right? They're kind of stuck at this low-wage job working for a meal day in and day out. And unfortunately for them, they come in contrast with the ideal at the time of what it meant to be a true woman, a true lady. Historians have called this the cult of true womanhood. And before you get too mad at me, I'm going to explain to you the cult of true womanhood. But remember that this was the ideal for them. This is what they wanted femininity to look like. You're not going to like it. Especially if you're a woman watching this video, you're not going to like this. In many ways, the modern feminist movement is a direct rejection of this. But we're going to go through this, and hopefully you won't hate me too much. The cult of true womanhood first said a woman was pious. She was naturally pious. She was religious, that she wanted to go to church, wanted to be a good person, wanted to go to church. A true woman was pure, and we mean sexually pure. She did not like or enjoy sex. It was a duty to her husband. It was not for themselves. It was for him. If a woman was impure, if she had too much sex, she could go insane. They actually had a diagnosis for this. It was called hysteria. This was a disease that only women could get, and it refers to women with unmanageable emotional excess, usually connected to an improperly controlled sex drive. Thirdly, the cult of domesticity included, well, domesticity, right? The cult of true womanhood said you should be domestic. You should be a mother, that the highest calling a woman could have is motherhood. Now, that doesn't mean you could not get a job outside of the home, but the job you got had to be somehow related to being a mother. So cooking was appropriate for a woman. Nursing was appropriate. Kind of shopkeeping or home cleaning was appropriate for a woman. Something that's teaching, education was appropriate for a woman, right? Something that could be seen as a natural extension of motherhood. But motherhood was the main reason a woman existed. And so you wouldn't want to do anything that would risk bearing children. And here are some things that they believed would put you at risk for bearing children. Too much reading, that could cause you stress, that could put pressure on you. Too much sex could keep you from bearing children. Yeah, I don't know. Too much physical exertion could cause stress and therefore could prevent pregnancy. So you wouldn't want to do anything that would prevent you from being a woman. And then finally, and you probably saw this one coming, the cult of true womanhood was submissive. That she was submissive to her husband politically, but submissive to her husband kind of in all things. And we'll talk about the consequences of that in the next video.